All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thanks, everybody. Is the president still speaking? Yeah. I know. It's quite a lengthy affair. Yeah. Hey, look, when you've got national media, why not milk the moment? I say, there's
never been anything like this.
Exactly. I think it was, I'm thinking it was...
I've never seen anything like it.
That was a play, very on brand for Donald Trump. If you missed our post-State of the Union kick around, we kicked it around with John Rothmann, who joins us again today, which is quite special.
What?
I know. Rothmann is back on Wednesdays. He does stop through. And we'll talk a little bit about the State of the Union speech. Look, just as a quick aside, the State of the Union really, first of all, it's interminable always, regardless of who's giving the speech. But an interminable is a ding word. But secondly, I would say that the effects of the State of the Union speech are marginal, might be overstating it. It almost doesn't matter at all. That said, there were a couple of revealing things last night. A couple of revealing things in the speech last night, and I would like to touch on those in the minutes that follow. I also want to let you know that we've got news out of the Pentagon. Hegseth at it again. I've got news about Kash Patel at it again. And I have a conversation about a new book that is really great. And I think for most of you, the incident that the book is centered upon is one that will land cleanly, meaning you'll remember it in some way. It's the Bernie Goetz shooting of 4 people on board a New York subway, all of whom were, he says, approaching him and feeling threatened. He shot them, again, he claims, in self-defense. He was carrying a gun that wasn't licensed to him. It wasn't licensed to be carried by him. And in shooting those teenagers, they were all around 18 years old, he created a controversy in New York City that spoke to the city at large and the way in which New Yorkers felt about their own safety being threatened. He became a folk hero on some level. It was a very different time in New York. It was a time of, I'll put it this way, a kind of controlled chaos, where the New York of the 80s, it was 1984 when it happened, the New York of the 80s involved a political leadership that wasn't really taking charge of things, didn't feel as though it had control of the city from the standpoint of protecting New Yorkers. And there was a sense on the part of New Yorkers that this guy, Bernie Goetz, Bernard Goetz was his name. He was literally called Bernie Goetz by the New York Post and by a lot of the papers and media coverage at the time. That Goetz was speaking for all New Yorkers. We feel threatened, and this is our way to strike out. So there's a new book about it. And the author of that book, Eliot Williams, joins us in hour 2. Yeah, hour 2. It's a really good conversation. You'll like it. Just had it with him yesterday. A lot to get to. Kim is here, of course.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah.
Hi.
Kim sat through the whole speech last night.
I blame you.
Yeah, you can blame me for it because I did say we're going to talk about it. And would you have watched the speech, Kim, if we weren't doing the show?
I mean, here's the thing. I might have
Yeah.
watched the clips afterward, and normally I would watch the State of the Union. I don't think I've missed one in years, but with Trump, you know he's going to say the same stuff he always says. It's like, it's regurgitating the hits, right?
Yeah, I think Kim is right about this, which is... What? I know, I'm surprised by it too. Kim is correct when she talks about the fact that Donald Trump really did integrate everything you've heard on the stump, everything you've heard in his rallies, and then what did he do? He added a little bit. I got a pinch of a Medal of Freedom. I got a pinch of the hockey team. I got a pinch, a little dash of this, dash of that. But it was really the same. I'm going to use this word. Crap that we've heard, meaning like the $18 trillion has been brought. I mean, these figures that are just pulled right out of his ass. I mean, they're completely debunked. But he, again, to use Kim's word, regurgitates them, and it's, say it enough and they might believe it. So we'll talk a bit about that. What's that?
Anything you needed to get from the State of the Union address, you didn't have to sit through the 2-hour longest State of the Union in history. You could just get it from us, and we'll save you the time. Really.
One of the things that he did, and he's not one of these, necessarily breakthrough thinkers, although I think he is a breakthrough showman. And I think a lot of what he did was stagecraft and really reflected the kind of showman that he is. And for that reason, he is brilliantly effective in these kinds of forums. One of the things he did was force Democrats into a corner, right? One of the corners they found themselves in, the first corner that Democrats sort of put themselves in was a conversation they were having that was associated with, should we go to this thing at all? Mm-hmm. There was a big conversation and a legit conversation about how do we handle this? This guy has been so lawless, has been so destructive, has undermined all governmental norms and even governmental laws, has gone around Congress in so many ways. He's coming back to the same chamber that he encouraged a coup attempt in. And there are, I think, quite defensible arguments for the Democrats not showing up at all. But after that corner that they kind of found themselves in, most of them do show, and then they find themselves in the second corner. And that is the one associated with, stand if you feel, I wrote it down as he said it, stand if you feel that the role of government is to protect Americans and not illegal immigrants. The first role of government, he said, stand if you feel the first role of government is to protect Americans, not illegal immigrants. I believe that was the wording. Now you're in a corner as a Democrat. What do? I mean, you don't want to tacitly approve of the summary execution by ICE agents of Americans on the streets of Minneapolis. You don't want to tacitly approve by standing the creation of these immense deportation centers that are designed to be profit centers and scoop up many who are completely innocent, even many who are in the country legally, and certainly the majority of whom have no outstanding criminal record. You don't want to stand and tacitly approve of these things, and we can go beyond that. But if you don't stand, then you now are tacitly suggesting that it's not the first role of government to protect the interests of Americans. So you find yourself in a tough situation. Again, I understand as a legislator how you would be finding yourself in a no-win. Most of the Democrats, I believe, didn't stand.
Well, you can't really, because the words are right, but the actions are wrong. How do you stand up for that when you know what he's doing? As you just said, they're killing people in the streets of Minnesota and elsewhere, because now we know they killed another American citizen in Texas. So you can't stand for that, right? You can't. I mean,
but you're not standing for that. is
But
the
it-
point. And
but
so
you
this
are,
is
because
why
you know
this
what he
is
means.
this is why it's hard. I mean, for the reasons that you've said.
Yeah.
That's the reason it's hard. I mean, everybody can stand for the general proposition, and that's really what you're left with. So you guys decided to go to the State of the Union. Again, I would have voted for not going, but I see the argument on both sides. I mean, again, there's sort of this sense by the Democrats that, we want to show the best of government. We want to play by the rules as laid out. We have to go. It's a bitter pill. Then we're going to swallow it and show America that we're bigger than this. All right. But then you find yourself in this situation. And honestly, I think you got to stand up. It's just a bad look. Then after that, you can make the point. Come when the gaggle of media comes to you, go, you stood up for Thompson. No, I didn't stand up for his ICE agents, and I didn't stand up for what's going on. I stood up for the general proposition that we need to protect Americans, but he's doing it all wrong. This president is wrong. In fact, you might have bought yourself more media attention if you'd done it. So you gave Trump that moment where he just shakes his head and he goes, oh, this is, you should be ashamed. You should be ashamed. You should be ashamed. So I'll bring Rothmann on. He might disagree with me. I understand how reasonable minds could differ on this. But the reality is that was a moment and a bit of showmanship that really gave Trump some traction in the room. And again, Agolf is right. No one is illegal on stolen land. Of course, you're right. I mean, the original sin of America is sadly not on full display. But the claims that Trump made were just wildly over the top. I think more than anything, he was able to play the stagecraft, as I say, the bringing on of the hockey team, the bringing on of the heroic Americans. And in bringing on these heroic Americans and having the First Lady, as you can see in this picture, help with this Purple Heart, I think is what he got. Isn't that what, or is this the...
I don't think it's the Purple Heart.
No, this is
It
the
might
Medal
be.
of Honor. This is the
Medal of Honor.
pilot.
So he was giving out medal. He was giving out a bunch of different medals, Purple Heart medal there, and then there's the hockey team. And there's the Black Hawk helicopter, Chinook helicopter operator.
I don't remember the State of the Union being used as a medal dispensing event before.
It hasn't been, and this, again, I think is, and you'll pardon me for saying this, but I think this is the genius of Trump. This is what he does. He turns it into something else. It's not just a speech. There's nothing pro forma about what Trump does at these events. He turns them into media events. He produces it like it's a TV show. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It is a TV show, and the Democrats should realize this as well. And I'll digress just from this. By the way, I'll finish this point, and then I'll talk about what the Democrats did, or many of them. But we all see the absurdity and the hypocrisy of someone who has no record of public service wrapping themselves in people who were all about public service. The heroism that he's recognized with these medals and with these different moments of recognition, it's what he's doing with reflected glory, right? Taking that from someone who's actually deserving of the glory is gross, right? We know it's gross. We know it's kind of stomach turning, right? You, who before you became president did nothing for America, you're wrapping yourself in those who are everything that is the best of America. And wrapping yourself in the flag is not new to Donald Trump. I mean, let's be honest. But while he does it in a way that turns it into high art, give me the wrap package from Australia. I'm curious how the Australians played this. Go ahead, Tony.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
A record-breaking long speech heavy on patriotic pride.
Our country is winning again. In fact, we're winning so much that we really don't know
what to do about it.
The Olympic ice hockey champions invited to the chamber to reinforce Donald Trump's narrative of an America turned around under his leadership.
A short time ago, we were a dead country. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world, the hottest.
In the face of sliding approval ratings, the president defended his economic policies,
Everybody's up, way up.
criticising the Supreme Court for striking down his tariffs program
It just came down, it came down.
as some of its justices watched on.
Very unfortunate ruling.
With the midterm elections later this year, President Trump knew he had to stay on message about the cost of living. But he talked for so long and touched on so many topics, that key issue could easily have gotten lost, doing little to alleviate the nerves of Republicans in vulnerable seats.
Is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family? We all know the answer is no.
Drug lords, murderers.
Democrats also took issue with the president spruiking his immigration crackdown
Removal of these.
weeks after 2 Americans were killed in Minnesota.
Ashamed of yourself.
One Democrat was kicked out during the speech.
We're making history.
Others boycotted it altogether.
Stand up for our values.
A show of defiance against the president's agenda.
God bless you and God bless America.
So those are the hits. I think that he actually did cover so much, and on a speech of that length, pretty much everything's going to get lost unless you're really paying attention. Let's be honest. It is truly an interminable endeavor, this speech before Congress, the State of the Union. It's become, and John Rothmann, when he comes on, can sort of talk to you about the history, but it's become this thing, and presidents hate doing it. I think. I mean, Trump may have liked it because it's so loaded with applause breaks. I mean, it's like you are giving a speech that is manicured and choreographed for maximum reaction in the room. So if you feed off that, and look, most of us like to get applause, but Trump is on another level. You know, his ego drinks that in, and it just gives him more life force. So this is the speech for him. But if you're an end user, a retail consumer of this speech, it is, again, interminable. It is difficult to digest because it's so interrupted by all of these applause breaks and by all these over-the-top quote, patriotic pronouncements of one sort or another about how America's the best, my policy's the best, we are all winning. Play me the we are all winning part. It's insane to me. And if I were a Democratic strategist, I would play this we are winning thing like crazy as the midterms approach, because this shows a true disconnect between the chief executive and Main Street. Go ahead.
Our country is winning again. In fact, we're winning so much that we really don't know what to do about it. People are asking me, please, 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 Mr. President, we're winning too much. We can't take it anymore. Here with us tonight is a group of winners who just made the entire nation proud. The men's gold medal Olympic hockey team. Come on in.
Now that was clever, the pivot to the hockey team. But prior to that, people are coming to me going, sir, we're winning too much. We don't know what to do. I mean, that was like a, that was a war.
He needs the why are you yelling drop. God, he's overmodulated. Back off the mic.
Yeah, that surprised
That was their
me.
feed. The White House feed wasn't overmodulated.
Wasn't
That
as
was
bad. Yeah, when I watched it last night, it wasn't overmodulated. Yeah. So not interested, says Luis, in dude's oratory self-gratification game show. Why would I watch a draft dodger award medals to heroes? Hashtag waste of time. Thank you for that. I mean, look, that's the, I think, a legit position, which is, you know, you've given nothing to this country. You're taking from this country with both hands. You're looting the treasury, and you're awarding medals to those who are legit heroes. The other thing I would say, and I think this will be something that Rothmann touches on, is when it comes to the Democratic response, that's again kind of baked into the whole thing. There's a lot that's sort of baked into everything that it's sort of like, yeah, it was whatever. I mean, it's I'm talking about the applause breaks, for example, the self-congratulations, the facts that don't quite match reality. These are things that are baked into every speech, but of course, Trump has it cranked up to 10, right? The response sucks, always. It doesn't matter who's giving it. It's always tepid. She did a nice job last night, I thought, with it. But you'll remember when Marco Rubio gave I don't know how many of you remember that. He had to take a drink of water because he was so dry-mouthed. You remember that? It was really awkward. Maybe Tony can find that.
Remember the kitchen lady from last year?
The kitchen lady from last year was horrifying, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, so you can bury yourself with the response. You can almost really only hold serve with a good response, okay? That's the best you can do. And I think the Democrats did that last night. It was like the best she could do was the best anyone could do.
I wanted a little more passion from her. I found it, I mean, there's so much egregious about Trump, the State of the Union, as you even mentioned, being back in that chamber, after January 6th, and there he is standing at the podium. I mean, there was so much passion she could have had, and her words were good, but I wasn't feeling it.
Now, maybe she's not the right messenger in that, but to be fair, here's Marco Rubio, just to remind you of how, this is the Republican response back when...
On foreign policy, America continues to be indispensable to the goal of global liberty, property, and safeguarding human rights. The world is a better place when America is the strongest nation on earth. But we can't remain powerful if we don't have an economy that can afford it. In the short time that I've been here in Washington, nothing has frustrated me more than false choices like the one the president laid out tonight. The choice isn't just between big government or big business.
It was just the
weirdest
weirdest
we need is an
thing.
account.
So it was just the odd thing for those just listening. He dips out of the shot and kind of grabs this bottle of water. So
you could hear right at the beginning,
wild.
he was like coughing or something. You could tell it was dry the whole time. You could hear him like mispronouncing words.
Yeah. And again, that's just one example. There was Bobby Jindal, the guy from Louisiana. He had a horrifying. His was really weird. He was like this cardboard kind of character going, "Hello, my name is Bobby Jindal. You may not recognize me or know who I am, so it's a pleasure to meet you." It's like it was it was awful. I mean, but again, it didn't matter. But in the moment, it was super embarrassing. So it was an example of how bad it can get. But again, I thought the Democrats did well last night. Well, here's the Jindal thing. Here's a little bit of it. You'll kind of see what I'm talking about.
I'm Bobby Jindal, governor of Louisiana. Tonight, we witnessed a great moment in the history of our republic. In the very chamber where Congress once voted to abolish slavery, our first African-American president stepped forward to address the state of our union. With his speech tonight, the president completed a redemptive journey that took our nation from Independence Hall to Gettysburg to the lunch counter, and now finally the Oval Office. Regardless of party, all Americans are moved by the president's personal story. The son of an American mother and a Kenyan father.
I mean, first of all, it's so funny just on a substantive level to hear a Republican speaking generously toward the president that we've just heard from. He's talking about Obama, of course, right? But you could see that he's sort of his stiffness and his, the way he speaks, just like that. After a few minutes, it gets to be the kind of thing that is obnoxious and weird and is going to be called out by a lot of people. And that's exactly what happened. So I want to get to Al Green, who was holding a sign that was and I believe and Ilhan Omar. We'll get to all of that as we continue. Smash the like button for me if you would, please, and we will continue with the conversation with a great scholar in just a moment. But first, I want to...
The Mark Thompson Show.
I want a quick shout out to our sponsor and partner, Suite 106 Bakery, SUITE, for those just listening, like a suite of rooms. They are amazing. A small business that has won Cupcake Wars twice, and she, again, female entrepreneur, keeping the business small, but getting this deliciousness out in small batches. Wow. So when you order, it's baked to order. And she's also created things in that kitchen of hers that are otherworldly. So again, This should be not CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It should be, you have the wrong banner up. But this is Sweet106bakery.com, S-U-I-T-E, Sweet106bakery.com. The discount code is Mark T for 15% off. Go back to that one thing, which is the layered cupcake. Now, there are brownies, there are cookies, there are all sorts of wonderful baked goods, and she brings such a great touch to everything. But to me, the layered cupcakes, they come in these containers, and you can see it's 3.5 cupcakes essentially with the frosting and all of it put in this, again, layer cake environment. The Snickers is a fan favorite. You will love maybe also my favorite, the layered raspberry,
red
what is
velvet.
it?
Red
Velvet cake.
velvet, yeah.
Red velvet cake. It's like, it looks like it would be raspberry or strawberry, but it's this, again, it's transcendent. It's like a religious experience, the Southern Red Velvet.
Yeah.
Christy will come back. I think she's got some new stuff planned for the spring. But for now, jump on board and support our partners, and you will delight with every bite. Sweet106bakery.com. Again, 15% off using Mark T, our discount code at checkout. Sweet106bakery.com.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This guy is a scholar. He's a lecturer. He is our former colleague from KGO Radio, author and political historian, the great John Rothmann. Hi, John.
I was very interested in the Sweet 106 Bakery, and I let's stick to what really matters here.
Yeah, and that can definitely take the edge off the fact that the Republic is going down the drain. A little Sweet 106 Bakery can it can sweeten the entire experience.
And they rise to the occasion.
Oh, they rise to the occasion. I get it. Okay. Rothmann, let me ask you about a speech that, let's face it, in the long run doesn't matter. Nobody's going to remember this at midterm time. But I think there are some revealing things, and I'll share some of my thoughts with you, revealing the strategy moving forward for this party and this president. But give me your thoughts.
He's a great showman, and that was what he wanted to convey. The Republicans cheered him because they are tied to him as we approach the midterm elections. The Republicans are afraid of losing control of both the House and the Senate, and Donald Trump is their one bet, the sure ticket that will take them to success. And so what you saw last night were Republicans clinging to him. And let me assure you that the two most prominent Republicans to succeed him were sitting right there. J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, who's now going to look into the questions of fraud, unbelievable. And, of course, Marco Rubio, who was singled out in the speech. And I suggested, and I will suggest again, that the Republican ticket may be in 2028. Vance and Rubio, which would be a continuation of Donald Trump's legacy. And that is the most important single takeaway.
I think if you're Rubio, once again, Rubio's choked down so much. He's totally reconstituted himself as this MAGA-ite, Trump acolyte. But the fact that he'd have to run number 2 to J.D. Vance would make him sick. I would almost love to see.
On the other hand, let me point out that when you are vice president, you are a heartbeat away from the presidency. Anything can happen. John Kennedy said, "Don't worry, I'm young, I'll live out my term." And look what happened. So I'm only pointing out to you that anything is possible in politics.
Okay, anyway, you were saying those two guys are in the room. So, again, longest speech ever. He is, already famous for blithering on and going. But to be fair to him, it was mostly stuff that was prompter led. So he had built a long speech already, he and his people. And again, it was mostly warmed over Trump stuff like, I'm bringing in $18 trillion here. Things are so much better now. Biden left me a smoldering mess. Now I've turned America into the winningest country ever. Play me a little bit, if you would, Tony, of Trump last night talking about the fact that we have the hottest country. I mean, things are hot. Things are good. People are coming to him all the time saying we're hot, hot, hot. No?
Mark, that's the sales pitch.
Right.
You understand what Donald Trump was doing last night was setting up the Republicans to avoid a catastrophic defeat in 2026. If the Republicans lose the House and the Senate, Donald Trump is in deep, deep trouble. So what he did was to really push the Republican label, and I understand that completely. That is
sure. It's marketing for that brand. I get it, but just you couldn't find it, Tony, or do you have it? I don't know. Now it's not critical. I had in our pre-show we said Trump hottest country, but if you don't have it, don't worry about it. So anyway, let's. I may have lost Tony. Maybe that's the problem. Anyway, the thing that you're talking about, which is the midterms and moving forward, this is quite critical, and this is one of the things that I thought was revealed last night. I want to get your thoughts. When he called out the Democrats as cheaters, they cheat. The only way they can win is by cheating. He said it over and over again. On the one hand, we've heard him say it a lot in different environments, on the stump, in pretty much every opportunity he gets, he calls it out. But to put it in the State of the Union, to me, was a way that he was indicating a direction that they're going to go at the midterms. And I think on this, you and I disagree, but I think he's going to challenge the legitimacy of the midterms. He's going to try to suppress the vote, do all those things that they typically do, and take that to a new high level. But if they do lose the midterms, I think they're going to challenge again that legitimacy. And they may even go as far as to push back on seating those new legislators.
Look, anything is possible. I only know that there will be an election. I know that the polls now indicate that the Democrats are on the verge of recapturing the House. Donald Trump's fear is that if that happens, there will be investigations and there will be exposure. And that's the last thing Donald Trump wants. So last night, Donald Trump moved quickly and effectively to build a Republican statement of what they are looking for. By the way, the whole question of the legitimacy of elections, they've got legislation in Congress that has passed the House, that has appeared in the Senate in order to completely revamp the way we do our elections. Now, let me point out to you that elections are state by state.
Well, when you say revamp, you're talking about the nationalizing of the election.
Exactly. And that violates the Constitution. I just don't see it. By the way, his attack on the Supreme Court, I want to remind you, he entered the chamber shaking hands with those justices. He did so in a sign of civility, but certainly his speech was intemperate, an attack on the United States Supreme Court. And you can
well, I mean, he was even more intemperate just 24 hours prior and 48 hours prior to that. You know, so he, in a way, he was rather tame in his slap down of the court.
That's right, and we have to remember who Donald Trump is and what he represents. And frankly, I am afraid of it. Let me quickly shift because I know.
Well, before you shift, I want to get to Al Green. Tony, can you just show the Al Green pic? Al Green was holding as Trump entered the chamber, a sign that says "Black people aren't apes." You can see Al Green there, and Al Green is also distinguished in what other way, John Rothmann?
In the last State of the Union, he had introduced an impeachment resolution. And he was removed from the chamber as he was last night. Let me remind everyone that the President of the United States posted on his Truth Social a picture of Michelle and Barack Obama as primates, as apes. And that's what Al Green was protesting. And he is absolutely right. What the president did was nothing less than obscene. And of course, he tries to blame it on others. But no aide came forward or was blamed for that post. It was Donald Trump.
Did you feel as though, and that was Al Green, and that was that moment, that was prior to the actual start of the speech, did you feel as though Democrats can defensively make an argument for the fact that they shouldn't have gone to the speech at all, that they could have boycotted the speech?
I do listen with great care to your monologue. And you suggested that a boycott would have been appropriate. Quite the contrary. I believe the Democrats should have filled every seat in the House chamber. I believe the Democrats need to say, of course we're here. We want to hear the fraud. My objection is that it shouldn't be a canned response. Whenever Democrat or Republican
the Democratic response shouldn't have been canned. Okay,
right. There should have been a real critique of what Donald Trump said. And that's the way I would have proceeded, just like you would do in a high school or college debate class. So, but that's a weakness in this system By the way, you may remember in 1974 in January when Richard Nixon stood before the House and said, 1 year of Watergate is enough. And I point that out because people forget that how a president sets his theme is critical. And that is precisely what Donald Trump did last night for the Republicans and for his future.
Well, by attending, they put themselves in a position to be a prop for Donald Trump. And
you know what a demagogue is? You know what a demagogue is? That's what demagogues do. Donald Trump is a demagogue. As long as there was one Democrat sitting in that chamber, they would have been used as a foil for the president. Now, you could say, Mark, that all of the Democrats should have absented themselves, and you would have had an empty half chamber. I can just imagine what Donald Trump would have said about that. No,
well,
I
mean, it would have, but the reasons that you'd have an empty chamber, half chamber, those reasons could be articulated by Democrats who have a message to communicate to the rest of America. I mean, as it was, they're just kind of sitting there as props. So you end up in that situation where, you know, stand up if you feel the role of government is the first role of government is to protect Americans and not illegal immigrants. You ended up having to face that.
We'll just agree to disagree. I mean, that is what happens, and it's a question.
Would you have stood up or not on that one?
I would not have stood up for anything Donald Trump had to say.
Okay,
Nothing.
so that's the that.
Period.
Okay, I want to take you quickly to the Iran nuclear program, which he, you know, again, we're right on the verge, it would seem, of some kind of bless you, sir, Iran military incursion. You've written about this. You wrote a whole book about relationships with Iran and terrorism and the ruling leadership in Iran. I wonder if you can just assess this, especially, again, in the shadow of the State of the Union, because I thought, based on his last claims after the bombing, that we'd obliterated the nuclear program. He said, literally, we obliterated the nuclear program in Iran. He said that last night. And then he goes on to talk about the negotiations that are going on in Iran. I mean, the two things shouldn't seem to coexist.
No, you're exactly right. We didn't obliterate it. We did a damage to it. But I also want to point out to you that that's Donald Trump. He doesn't have to be consistent. Listen, he said again last night, by the way, we may well, by the time I'm here next week, have attacked Iran. We don't know what the outcome of that will be. We don't know what the goal of Donald Trump's effort is. We do know that the Iranian spokesman said this morning, we want to avoid any attack from the United States. We're willing to compromise. The Iranians have never kept their word on anything. But the other issue that came up last night was Ukraine. You would think that the president or the United States would have acknowledged yesterday as the fourth anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And you would have thought that the president would have known better than to say, if I had been president, there never would have been an invasion. I think the truth of the matter is that Donald Trump is a fake and a fraud. And by the way, you'll notice all of the peace treaties he claims that he was able to establish in the world. It's nonsense. It's just not true. But if you repeat a lie often enough, people tend to believe it. What the Democrats...
Here's a comment. Put victims in their seats, says Becky. People who lost businesses because of tariffs, etc. Yeah, there is no shortage of those who have really been hurt by this economy. And that's why when he talked about winning, it was just to me such a stark contrast to what's actually going on right now in America.
They brought Epstein survivors to the chamber. They were seated there and no one acknowledged them.
Right.
No one has acknowledged the fact that yesterday, in advance of this moment, the State of the Union, proof came out that the purge of the files from the Justice Department eliminating the name of Donald Trump. This man is, frankly, it's shameful.
Well, what you're talking about is significant, and we can pivot to that now. I covered this story in the last couple of days, but it's now getting more mainstream coverage, which I'm really happy about. The Epstein files had contained, this is some great reporting that actually led to the reality and the realization that there'd been an omission. The Epstein files contained FBI conversations with a victim of both Epstein and allegedly Trump. She alleges an entire scenario. She's quite specific about it.
That Trump raped her
Yeah.
when she was 13 years old.
And there was, as I say, a lot of specificity with that. And yet it was deleted. It was excised from the Epstein files. And so you end up with just the fact that the FBI spoke to this girl, but not all of the other specifics to which John has referenced. That is what's coming out now in mainstream media.
This is the most corrupt Justice Department in the history of our country. And I want to be clear, Pam Bondi has no business being Attorney General of the United States. You know it, I know it, and if you listen to her testimony last week before the Senate, what you heard was someone attacking. It was the most horrific example of an abuse of power by an Attorney General that I have seen in modern American political history. But this is what the Trump administration fosters. One of the things that is so disturbing is there is so much, it's overwhelming, that you and I could spend the next month every day with a different focus on a different part. Listen, did you hear this morning the testimony by the nominee for Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Means? It's a disgrace, and the odds are that she will be confirmed as the Surgeon General of the United States. And it's absolutely wrong, but that's the policy being reflected by this administration.
She was asked, just because I don't like you just to give a headline and tell me something was crazy without putting a specific on it, she was asked about in vitro fertilization. She was asked about fertility treatments, and she's made a lot of controversial statements about both those things. She claims that the cause of infertility in people with polycystic ovary syndrome is reversible, in her words, if they change what they eat. She's also generally insinuated that infertility can be fixed if a person changes their diet with exercise and stress levels as well. An ideology reproductive health experts call blame and shame fertility. It's spoken of quite openly in that community. And
not only that, look at what she did, Mark, on the question of taking birth control pills. She accuses them, that is people who use them, of popping them like candy. It is such damaging. And this morning, while she said, oh, yes, vaccines serve a useful purpose, she refused to say that she would recommend the vaccine. Oh, no, that's between a doctor and a patient. I've never heard such BS in my life. And she may be confirmed as Solicitor General of the United States of America.
This is all of the business of this administration. It's filled with those who are incompetent and dangerous. And, you know, when you talk about Trump appointees from Hegseth to Patel to Noem to RFK Jr., you're just going from one group of incompetence to another. Yeah. So in that spirit, I wanted to touch on Kash Patel. Now, Kash Patel is finally getting attention that we have been drawing to his luxurious lifestyle, basically treating the federal dime like a corporate expense account. I've been talking about that for a long time. He's been doing it a long time. He finally goes to the Olympics, and Kash Patel is now getting called out on his what's called irresponsible joyriding. This is Dick Durbin calling him an irresponsible joyrider, and saying that the agency's work was marred by Patel's poor decisions. The key here is that it's not just his spending. It's not just the fact that he's not serious about running the FBI in any kind of responsible way, but it's that by doing what he's doing in a whistleblower report, there are literally FBI investigations that are not getting done because of the way he's conducting himself and those around him.
Oh, it's shameful. But look, the same with Dan Bongino, who has now left the position as deputy director. I can't put into words, which is a terrible thing for a talk show host to say. I can't put into words my disgust for the nominees to key jobs in our government. Kristi Noem as Secretary of It's.
Well, she has her own story with the new jet that she wants. She has it's specially outfitted with this bedroom so that, again, so you need a bedroom. I get it, to lie down, whatever. But, it suggested that sort of this is a flying roll-around plane for her and Corey Lewandowski as they go from place to place. Lewandowski is not even on the official list of government employees, and yet he's running effectively DHS alongside her.
You and I understand this depth of corruption. We have never had a presidential administration so filled with corruption. The whole question of Bitcoin and the whole question of, well, you can go down the line of the president who, as president, is peddling Bibles, for God's sake. I mean, there is something seriously wrong. And by the way, he singled out last night his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, in order to applaud all of his great work. And I have to tell you, again, I find it offensive. Do you know that Kushner and his family and Steve Witkoff as well, have made billions of dollars? And this is not an abstract statement that I'm making that can't be proved. It's true. And this kind of corruption.
Well, when you say billions of dollars, I mean, again, finish that statement. Billions of dollars off of
Bitcoin.
off the American government and off of the American government's involvement in various negotiations with foreign countries.
And investments by Qatar, by Saudi Arabia, by the Emirates. It's, buying influence.
Exactly, buying influence. The meme coin which was billions of dollars from the UAE initially, and it's been followed by the Saudis, et cetera, that is truly influence peddling. So, John, you're so right about this. But again, you end up in a situation which is why it was so almost quaint that last night Donald Trump was talking about J.D. Vance ferreting out fraud. He was
California.
In California. Yeah. The idea that, the greatest fraudster in American history is assigning someone in his administration to ferret out fraud is comical, were it not so serious.
And that's why we have to continue exposing it. And that's why what the Democrats did last night, why I wanted them in listening to the speech, I wanted them to be able to come out and talk about what was wrong with the speech. But everybody listening, I know we're running out of time. You always cheat me out of time. I want to point that out.
What?
The setup here is for the midterm elections. The Republicans cannot afford to lose. They are going to do everything they can to win. And they cannot win without Donald Trump and his agenda in the forefront. Turning out the Trump voter is going to be critical in the midterm elections. Now, the polls now indicate the swing toward the Democrats. That's because you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time, if I can take that famous quote. And Donald Trump, I guarantee you this, you and I will talk about this in 4 years, and we will talk about the most corrupt administration in American history. It makes the administrations of Grant and Harding look clean as a whistle. And
the reality is, of course, you're right. I don't know if the plan is to fool anybody anymore. I understand that, he's making his speech, which may fool some people. I think it plays to the cultists. It plays to his existing base. Okay. But I guess what I would say is the plan, and this is, I think, a 5-alarm fire. That's why I repeat it. The plan is not to worry about winning the election legitimately and about fooling anybody else. It's about claiming the illegitimacy of a loss, the illegitimacy of a Democratic win. And I think that is the plan. So in addition to voter suppression, I think that will be the plan.
But it's very hard to do it on a state-by-state level. You cannot claim fraud on a national basis when all of these elections are done state by state. And that's going to be a very telling point. And I think that is our saving grace. Our founders wrote it in such a way that I think we will be protected. And, this is something you and I will be talking about and our listeners will be reflecting on all the way to November and beyond.
I want to share with you something that is unique to our conversation. And let me tell you what it is. One of the things that I do and I actually usually get credit for it, and sometimes I get criticism for it, is that I'll ask a question, sometimes it's a long-winded question or whatever, it was set up, it's a conversation after all, and then I lean back and I let the person speak, and I'll let them go for something, and I get criticized for that because sometimes somebody's saying something that's not true, maybe they're a right-winger, why do you let him speak so long, why do you interrupt him, why do you call me? But generally, that's my disposition. But the only guest that I interrupt and really wrestle around with, typically and pretty regularly on the show, is the brilliant John Rothmann. And so John and I go around, and I have to shoehorn myself in because he'll just go and go and go. John, that's his thing. But this is the point. I get more comments, and if you look at the comments under our videos,
I've received a lot of positive letters.
I've received more comments about why do you interrupt? How dare you be so rude to your guest? You interrupt him all the time, and it's wonderful. So all of you, if you've made it this far in this conversation with Rothmann, know that this is the relationship we have. He goes and goes, and I have to just squat on different parts of the conversation. Otherwise, I'll never get a word in.
May I say, if people missed our commentary last night, the panel that you put together, how do they get that?
It's up on our YouTube channel, so it should be there. Yeah.
I think it was a great opportunity. Let me just close because I know.
In fact, you're right. Luis says the same thing. He says, thank you so much to all of you for hosting last night's MT special live show. Question, if there are no midterms on election night, will you host a show then, or shall we wait for broadcast from El Salvador?
Let me just remind everybody,
you,
I have promised that on election night, when you do this kind of Mark Thompson special, I will be there with bells on.
All right.
And I think it's very important that people appreciate the service that Mark Thompson does. Granted, he's making a small fortune doing this particular podcast.
Very small, apparently. Yeah.
But I want you to know,
small you can't see it. Right.
The reason I encourage people to subscribe to the Mark Thompson program, and the reason why I appear with no compensation, not even cupcakes, the reason I'm here is because I believe that what you are doing is so significant and so important. So click on the support button for the Mark
the subscribe button. Thank you, John. Thank you. I always love it when you work it back around to your message.
With your iron rod.
Smash that like button. You can find the great John Rothmann on his own podcast. It's called Around the Political World with John Rothmann. It's a daily offering, and you can also find him at thevoicesf.org. Around the Political World with John Rothmann is the name of his podcast. John, thank you.
I just want to tell you, my birthday is March 2nd. So when I appear with you again next Wednesday, I will be a year older. And may I say, I hope we are all a lot wiser as to what is going on in our country.
Hear, hear, sir. I love it. Well said, as usual. See you, John.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Use Mark Thompson.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. We are a live show, 2 to 4 in the East. What's up, East Coast? Have you seen those snowfall totals in the East Coast? Man, it's crazy. I was looking at some so we're in the U.S., of course. Everybody who joins internationally knows this. Happy birthday, Cheryl, says Jim Slayton, by the way, before I get any further. Cheryl Matz, happy birthday.
Big shout out.
Big birthday shout out to you. And to Jim Slayton for recognizing your birthday. I was blown away by the snowfall totals. They're like 2.5 feet, 3 feet up in, I think I was looking at Rhode Island, Maine. Incredible snowfall totals. So they're dealing with all of that stuff seems to be, I believe it's kind of melting, but you can give me the deal on that. Hello, everyone. Happy hump day. Trump sounded like thank you, Tony. There's the, let me just get to that comment in a second. Go. Will you put it back up? So we put the map up? No? Okay, good. What's going on today, guys? Well, I thought we had a whole conversation about what we're going to do on the show, and I can't get anybody to actually do anything. All right. Couple of feet of snow. There it is. Look at that. Man. Is that right? 50 and 60 inches of snow? Is that what it's done? Go back, scroll back up. Is it in inches?
I don't know. I'm trying to find maps as quick as I can.
Scroll back
here.
up to the top if you would. In inches, there it is. Season to date. That's season to date. Okay, that's 60 inches so far in the day. All right. But anyway, it's snowing like crazy. Now it's sort of stopped, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Now, here's Chaplain Fred. Without any, hello, everyone, and happy hump day. Trump sounded like Homelander from the series The Boys. Oh, do you know that reference,
No,
Kim?
I don't know that one.
No. Chaplain Fred does. Thank you for the super chat. I don't know the reference, though.
Big shout out.
Not to change the subject, Mark, but Trump is flexing on Iran because he needs a new drug route for Europe. Russia and Muslims have blocked the old routes. Oh, again, now I'm out of my depth on that. I don't know about that. Maybe you can send me something on that. You can reach me at the Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. Trump drinks in applause like Mark drinks in Sweet 106 cupcakes. You're right. I think he's a big fan. I think he comes off of that with an ebullience and a confidence, and that's real. That's not fake. That's real. Polling, though, really puts Trump underwater. Even on immigration, the new ABC News, Washington Post Ipsos poll conducted using the Ipsos strategy of polling. It's harder and harder to poll. I can do something on that maybe tomorrow because it's a legit story. Most of the mainstream news organizations are getting out of the polling business. Gallup dropped its, cornerstone poll about presidential popularity. And the reason for that is that the mechanisms and the lift behind getting accurate polling information is so expensive, and there just isn't enough payoff in doing it. So you're seeing fewer and fewer of these kinds of polls. But in about 8 in 10 responses from Trump approvers, there is a mention of immigration. 6 in 10 mentions among Trump disapprovers. 4 in 10 mentions from approvers were about securing the borders, while about 1/3 mentioned increased immigration enforcement, or ICE. Half of the Trump disapprover mentions were about increased immigration enforcement, or ICE. So this is after the shooting of Renee Good and Alex Peretti in Minneapolis. They do this poll, and those who approve of Trump are those who say in the poll that they approved of the way Trump was handling his job as president, and those who are considered disapprovers, the ones who disapprove of Trump, they disapprove of how he's handling his job generally, and then they go from there. Again, the net is that he's underwater. He's not a popular president. So
do you think the speech did anything to change that?
No. The speech was a qualified no. The speech was red meat to his base. It played the Democrats as cheaters, everything wrong with the country. He went after sanctuary cities. He went after a populist message. It was very much like his campaign speeches. That's why I said it's sort of warmed over. But if you like hearing that, fraud, we're winning, this is great. You want the anger at Democrats, they're the reasons. You want to celebrate those who are the great ones in America. Military is the center of that for the most part. The gold medalist hockey team players, those were all very much in that. So he's surrounded himself with stuff that is typically that which supports him. Again, the winning hockey team and those moments that I just mentioned, those are all winners for him. But in general, the message, it's falling on deaf ears. People's experience day to day is, note that poll, is a negative one. Yeah. They have a negative view of him. So if you want to think of it this way, think of it as the show is getting old, and people aren't sparking to the show anymore. I think if you look at his screaming and his pronouncements about winning and about how well we're doing and about the $18 trillion, it's all getting old. It's been debunked. And for those who don't know, it has been debunked. Even they are, in the main, tired of it. He is a president who is underwater. He is going to be toxifying the political environment for all of those GOP hopefuls in the midterms. Now, that's why I keep drawing attention to the people who pass through here who will talk to me about it. Anthony Davis, last night we talked about it. If you really want to see a kind of spirited conversation, find our post-State of the Union conversation with Rothmann, with Mo Kelly, with Anthony Davis. And we all talk about the fact, and I think it's a real front and center issue, that the midterms are just not going to go down legitimately. There's going to be every effort to mess with them because it's so clear it's going to be a train wreck for them. So
they're not even trying to hide it. You're 100% right. I mean, you see it with, him last night talking about the SAVE Act and mail-in ballots and the trying to kick people off voter rolls and Pam Bondi trying to collect voter rolls from states to get information over and over again. I mean, it's so obvious. They're showing their hand before the election even begins.
Yeah, exactly. Tony called up a couple of interesting things before I get you to this really cool interview with Eliot Williams, who wrote this book, and you're going to love this conversation about the Bernard Goetz shooting on the subway in New York and why it's more than just that incident. It's a whole comment on the media and where we are today in America. It's way more than just this one incident. That's why we're even having the conversation. I'll get to it in a second. But Tony found some interesting facts about the State of the Union speech. Normally, I wouldn't kind of share this stuff with you, but it was kind of, obviously, it was the longest speech. Others who had long speeches, Bill Clinton was among them, as I recall. And also, and again, I'm just doing this from memory since I guess Tony can't call this up, but the longest, the most applause breaks, I thought that was the most interesting stat. The most, before last night, what president during the State of the Union, it's in your lifetime, had the most applause breaks? During the State of the Union, they're famous for their applause breaks, right? Trump had well, there it is. I guess he's...
No, this is just the links.
Oh, okay. Donald Trump broke records with the address lasting over an hour and 40 minutes.
This
Bill
was
Clinton
last year,
held
so
the
he did it
previous
again
record
last night. Yeah.
At an hour and 28 minutes. Again, this is...
I texted Mark. I said, I don't know how much more of this I could stand. This is long.
Oh, it was brutal.
Yeah.
It was brutal. But the applause breaks perhaps are the most brutal part of it, I think. Who was the Obama? A lot of people say Obama had the most applause breaks. Tony, show them the answer. Most applause breaks. Bill Clinton is what we were looking for. Yeah, Bill Clinton had 128 applause breaks. That is the record for the most in a single speech.
That was a speech that only went an hour and a half. So
well, it's a lot of applause.
So I think Trump had 110 last night in a 2-hour speech. So they're quite more frequent with the Clinton speech.
Yeah, how about that? So, but again, it's the most obnoxious thing. I thought it was pretty. I thought it was pretty weird how I'll give you one of the weirdest applause breaks in all of last night. Okay. And believe me, I just told you at the beginning of the show, I hate the State of the Union. It is awful. It is so choreographed. Everybody's standing up every 2 seconds. He's making up a bunch of crap, whoever the president is. This guy, of course, makes up a bunch of crap on a level that we've never seen before. And so you end up with, again, this horrible, long, applause break-ridden experience.
I've never seen anything like it.
Here was the most obnoxious and incredible applause breaks. And of course, who was the first guy up at every applause break? Mike Johnson, Nobody kisses Trump's ass like Mike Johnson. He's the best guy. He's the best Trumpy MAGA. He's always out there. Well, I think the president has a legitimate answer. There are all kinds of inconsistencies. Yes, of course. I think the president is right to ask those questions. I mean, he's always out there with it. When Trump said, I don't need Congress to do what I need to do. I don't need Congress for the tariffs I want to impose. I don't need Congress. Mike Johnson leapt out of his seat and applauded. Mike Johnson, he's head of the House. You are Congress, mother effer. How dare you stand up like that?
Right.
You have a responsibility to this country to do what you're charged constitutionally to do. And that is not to turn over all the power to the President of the United States to go around Congress. The fact that you leapt to your feet is so embarrassing. It was awkward. It was grotesque. That's Mike Johnson, and that is that party, completely in the thrall of this man. So, smash the like button.
Smash it with your iron rod.
I still want to get to Pete Hegseth, who is back at it, and I will get to all of that. But now, a very intriguing incident when you look at it historically and how it affects life today. It's a window on today as well. My conversation with Eliot Williams here.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I have been looking forward to this conversation because it involves a period of history, recent history for some of us, or it seems recent anyway, that many of us lived through and sort of lived the different perspectives around. I'm speaking about the subway shooting involving Bernard Goetz. It was back in 1984 in New York City. It happened on the subway. 4 black teenagers shot after they approached him. There's a lot to this story beyond the incident itself. It's really, even the trial of Bernard Goetz put the city of New York on trial, and it's all chronicled in ways that really offer a perspective on present-day America as well in a new book called 5 Bullets. And the author of that new book, 5 Bullets, is with us now, Eliot Williams. And hello, Eliot Williams. Welcome.
I love the I don't think it's an applause track. I love the fact that there's a crowd of people cheering for the book 5 Bullets right now. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, we have plenty more where that came from,
Woo!
so you'll appreciate that.
Good.
Look, there are narratives in your book that very much apply to today's America, and we can get to those.
Yeah.
But for many who vaguely remember the incident or may not even remember the incident, I wonder if you could just set the stage for us, please.
Of course, December 22nd, 1984, Bernard Goetz, with an unlicensed firearm that he always carried with him, boarded a New York City subway car. There were 4 black teenagers from the Bronx, unarmed. They were acting up. They were kind of rowdy, but certainly did not attack or assault or threaten anyone. One of them approached Goetz, asked for $5, either asked for or demanded $5. Goetz believes it was an imminent mugging and immediately pulled out his gun, shot all 4 of them, one of them twice, ultimately paralyzing him and leaving him brain damaged. He ran away, ultimately turned himself in, but became a cause celeb as in this New York City that was mythically rougher than anything you or I or most listeners recall or remember, just rougher than any New York that we know. People saw him as an avenger of sorts, a person who was finally doing what needed to be done to keep New York City safe. And so it was this really polarizing watershed moment in modern American history. There's a reason why Billy Joel included Bernard Goetz and We Didn't Start the Fire, because, on par with Ronald Reagan and Ayatollahs in Iran and Bridge on the River Kwai, it was just a seminal moment in modern 20th century history about race and crime and the law and media bias.
And thank you for the last thing that you mentioned, because media framing had everything to do with the way
100%.
you took this case in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I have an entire chapter in 5 Bullets about Rupert Murdoch's purchase of the New York Post, which happened a few years before the shooting. And Murdoch, who'd been this tabloid magnate, he was still up and coming as a young man relatively, but really wanted to create a paper that tapped into the sensationalization of the moment. So there were big splashy headlines about how frightened you were. We are scared. We are under siege in this city. Everything is bad. And look, when there's only a few games in town, there's only 3 or 4 newspapers. That's how people got their news. And it shifted the way people thought. And all the other tabloids came along with the New York Post. They all got salacious and in the muck kind of, and really helped drive the way people saw these 4 young men as predators and thugs, but also Getz as an avenger for a city that really felt unsafe.
I want to talk about some of the other variables that you point to that entered into it. For example, the NRA, that kind of forgotten that they were even players in the whole game in a second. But I want to ask you about sort of the way that public opinion was swinging, and if you can kind of just give us a sense of that, the way that unfolded.
Yeah, again, it is impossible. And I start the book by talking about the roughness in New York City, right? And I've said it, I think, 3 times to you already, Mark. It's just put out of your mind when you think of New York, the Labradoodles and the Whole Foods and the Lululemon yogi women walking the street. No, it was a place that had a homicide rate of about 1,700 a year, that compared to today where you see maybe 200 or 300 a year. The city was broke and mismanaged, fiscally underwater, seeking bailouts from the federal government. And all of that contributed. The subways were covered in graffiti and urine and mess and litter, and everything was just a rougher, grittier place than anything we can imagine. So the whole sort of backdrop is part of what drove public opinion here. When people, and I think more than half of the city, saw Getz as a hero, it was because of the fact that they saw people who supported him, and it wasn't everybody. But it was a weird multiracial coalition of folks who got behind him and saw him as doing what the authorities would not do that needed to be done. That the city was just the leaders of the city were just so feckless and not addressing crime and safety and public needs that this guy represented everyone who'd ever been hassled on the street. Now, of course, there was a horrible racial element to it all, that if the races were switched, I don't think people would have felt the same way, but they saw him as this hero.
The fact that they had screwdrivers on them, they weren't armed apart from the screwdrivers. I don't mean to diminish that necessarily at all, but there were even contexts for that. I mean, the screwdrivers really were designed for something else they were kind of on their way to.
Absolutely. So it's, and even to this day, people, both in the news, but also, you write a book and everybody starts sliding into your DMs to tell you every reason why you suck. And so many people have written to me, say, oh, they were carrying shivs and they had sharpened screwdrivers. The fact is they did have 3 screwdrivers on them between the 4 guys. It was to go downtown. They were on the subway to break open video game machines. It was an interesting historical moment in early 1980s New York. And folks who are old enough to remember, video arcades were everywhere, and not just video arcades, video arcade machines. Like every bar and bodega and cigarette shop or peep show, whatever else, had a Pac-Man or a Donkey Kong in the doorway. It was a common thing. Well, kids figured out that if you just went down with a screwdriver, you have one guy pretend to play it and another guy sneak behind it, pop it open with a screwdriver and walk away with hundreds of dollars. That's what these boys were heading down to, young men were heading down to do. And that's why they had the screwdrivers. But that narrative, which all the newspapers, including the historically liberal New York Times, ran with that narrative. And it fit this idea that these guys were super predator thugs from the hood who were just out to make trouble and hassled Bernard Getz. And that, over time, that narrative just got debunked. And this is not the view of Eliot Williams. This is literally testimony at trial, the reality of this case. The simple fact is they were not armed and did not show any sort of weapon to Bernard Getz.
Yeah, the myths that took flight during the time of the trial and through the entire narrative were substantial, and you talk about them. other element is this NRA thing again that you mentioned that I had not remembered at all, and the pivot that the NRA does. I wonder if you can speak to that.
Yeah, the interesting thing about writing a book is that you think you know a subject, and I feel like I know a lot about this shooting and these 5 individuals. I had no idea about this when I started writing, Mark. I really did not. And I had no idea that. Well, I knew the NRA had provided some support to Bernard Goetz. I didn't realize that prior to, I want to say 1977, the NRA truly was not engaged in Second Amendment advocacy. They were about the Boy Scout camps and the marksmanship shooting and the clay pigeons with Grandpa, but not Second Amendment advocacy. And there was a literal revolt within the organization, a coup by the activist wing of the NRA. They literally at their convention, I think it was in 1977, took over the organization, changed the board structure, and said that we want to focus this organization on the right to bear arms as a civil, if not God-given right. And this case, the shooting happened just a few years after that. And in many respects, Bernard Goetz was the perfect face of a new NRA. He was white, meek and timid, lived in a blue city in a blue state. He had applied for a firearm license and been denied. He'd been mugged once before. He voted. He paid his taxes. Every variable that the NRA could have adjusted for applied to him. And so they gave him money and $40,000 over the life of his legal cases for the purpose of supporting this notion of him as an avatar for self-defense in America. Now, to be clear, when information about Bernie Goetz started trickling out and people found out that he's kind of a bigot and kind of quirky and kind of a creepy loner, one by one, their statements started moderating a little bit. And they would say things like, well, we don't support everything about this story, but this is about the right to bear arms. And so it was clear that they were treating the man as different from the act.
And what's intriguing as well is the way that might have animated cases on down the way for the NRA, the stand your ground cases, So there's a lot here that's illustrative of stuff that you're going to see further on in decades that will proceed, that will follow it, I should say.
Absolutely. And that's part of what drew me to the book. And it's important that we started with, okay, what do we know about the Bernard Goetz story and shooting beyond we didn't start the fire? And yes, there's an incident that takes place in the span of 2 minutes in 1984. Okay, big deal. What's that about? But when we talk about fights over what is the law of self-defense, whether in New York or across the country, what is the power, as we started talking about media bias, and how does the media make us scared, or at least drive our actions, or drive the way the public sees crime? And most importantly, who gets lifted up for being vigilantes or for engaging in extra legal behavior? Bernard Goetz received a tremendous amount of support for engaging in actions that were, if not illegal, stepped up to the bounds of the law, but still got celebrated for it, certainly by the media and by a noticeable majority, if not plurality, of the population. Well, why is that? And what is it about him and the circumstances about him that allowed and sort of invited that from the public? Well, we're still living with that today. All of these questions around particularly fear and bias and the criminal justice system, we think about every day in our world.
You talk about this kind of hellscape of New York where people are just fed up and they embrace this guy.
Yeah.
They call him Bernie Goetz. He was referred to as Bernie Goetz. And when you wrote about him in the book, you talk about him as Bernard Goetz and Bernie Goetz. What was the conversation going on in your head around that?
It's interesting. Terms and how you refer to people is very important. Did I use the term boys or men to refer to the people? And I landed mostly on, for the most part of the book, on young men or teens. They were 18 and 19 years old. I didn't want to infantilize them because, look, they weren't 12, as many people want to call them boys, but they also weren't men in the sense that of what we think of when we think of grown men, right? I mean, yes, they were legally adults, but it's just a complicated. So I landed on young men typically with them. Typically when talking about how he engaged with his neighbors and friends, I would refer to him as Bernie, but sort of in the legal context and talking about the trial and so on, I would use the more formal Bernard. I don't recall if in my interview with him, and I recount that in the next to last chapter of the book, if I call him Bernie directly, but I actually think I referred to him as Mr. Getz. And even in our email correspondence, I've tended to keep it to, because he still writes me from time to time, refer to him as Mr. Getz.
Speak to, and then I will double back and we'll get a little bit to the trial, but speak to just because you've referenced the conversation, speak to those things that stood out to you in your conversation with him.
Oh, wow. What a 45 minutes of my life I'm not going to get back. But it was enlightening and fascinating. I think the thing that stands out to me more than anything else is how unrepentant he is about the shooting. I feel like after someone has engaged in a major act like that, there's at least some room for analysis or self-reflection, right? Not regret per se, but yes, I was scared. I was threatened. They were going to mug me. That needed to happen. However, what followed was a tragedy, right? I would just have expected that level of minimal self-analysis or awareness. And no, he actually believes those guys got what was coming to them and that he was just the person who happened to be the one to give it to them. And I was struck by that, by how unrepentant he was. It was interesting. He emailed me at one point after, or right as the book was coming out, and he said to me, "You harped," or no, he used the word harp, but you mentioned a lot of times in the book how I use the N-word. And then he sent me an article with the New York Times laying out the young men's criminal history, saying, if you don't include this, it's not fair. And I was saying, well, one, in the book, I mentioned those young men's criminal history, I think 41 times. And two, more importantly, none of that information of any of the crimes that these guys had committed was available to Getz at the time he decided to shoot them. So this idea of, well, because he said the N-word in his past and is on the record having said it, is somehow counterbalanced by the fact that these guys have criminal histories is just sort of preposterous. But race came up in our call, but it was just a ping-ponging 45 minutes of sort of meandering conversation that was just a fascinating window into a mind, for lack of a better way to put it.
So it sounds as though you got what you wanted on some level, at least connection to Getz and a sense of what he was thinking, although it sounds like it was, a bobbing and weaving sense of what he was getting, but the coherence, maybe it might be the way to put it, just wasn't there.
Well, it's interesting. And I talk about this in that next to last chapter of the book, 5 Bullets. There's still a brilliance to him. And even at the time I talked to him, I think he was 76, he's 78 now. And my wife was in the next room and could hear the conversation happening. He's a sharp guy. There's no question about that. But it was a lot of topics we covered in 45 minutes, a lot of grievances, a lot of axes to grind. He talked about how the media turned on him like it turned on Donald Trump, and how, some of the stuff about the black people coming down from Harlem and the blacks and the stuff they were doing and this. And so it's just, he was just sort of everywhere and nowhere all at once, but still sharp. I would not dispute that with him or anyone else. It was, he's lucid, but kind of everywhere.
The victims, if you will, of the shooting, you don't talk to them in the book. You did try to reach them, I think. Did you not?
Yes, many times. And back to terminology, I repeatedly use the term victims in the book. They were victims of a shooting. Now, it may have been, in the eyes of the law, a lawful shooting. That's what, at least what the jury found and what the court found, but they were victims of a shooting. Now, Getz's attorneys and Getz himself refused to use the term victims. That's a distinction that, regardless of whatever their copious criminal histories were, and these guys had gotten in trouble for a lot of things over the years. Let me be perfectly candid about that. But I did use the term victims. Now, Mark, I was literally kept up at night through the writing of this book about this issue. I wanted to speak to them so badly, or their families, and just couldn't either couldn't get a hold of them or their families, or in the case of Darrell Cabey, who is the individual who was paralyzed and brain damaged, they just declined. After some back and forth, got on the phone briefly with a couple of his sisters, and they just didn't want to. I've found empathy there. I was frustrated by it only because by trying to make the completely what I felt as a reporter or writer rational argument, which is Bernard Goetz and Curtis Sliwa and Bernard Goetz's defense attorney and the cops have all spoken to me for this. This is your chance to be a part of this book, which seemed to me to be rational. They just, it didn't resonate with them and they just wanted to move on. And I've, over these months or year, I guess, I found the grace to understand that, well, if your family was ripped apart by a violent tragedy 40 years ago, you probably, the last thing you want to do is talk to Eliot just because he says that you need to talk to him because Bernard Goetz did too.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. You know, it washes it down a little bit more smoothly than you might wonder why anyone who was part of this, particularly victimized by this, and you could suggest sort of additionally victimized by the jury verdict and all the rest, wouldn't want to, you know, wholeheartedly participate in it. But I think you actually frame it quite beautifully. Talk to me in just our last couple of minutes about the way that we look at reasonable fear now. You know, I see it in the ICE maneuvers, and I see it in the police shootings, and I see it in all of these confrontations with increasingly armed individuals in our country who open fire. This question of when is a fear reasonable?
You know, this aspect of the book was far and away the most challenging to write because it's the most legal. And despite a life as a legal analyst on television talking about the law for a lay audience, this was the most challenging to sort of get to how to explain the concept of legal reasonableness in a legal context, but in a way that made people want to read it and sort of, as my editor would say, in a propulsive manner that moves the narrative along. Well, ultimately, it came down to a question. Is the reasonableness of someone's fear subjective, meaning do we just as a jury or as a public just believe that he genuinely felt afraid? Or is it objective? Would we believe that other people, reasonable people, normal people would have behaved in the same manner? Was it sincere, or would other people have behaved in the same manner? Well, as I explain in a chapter of the book, ultimately where New York landed on this, and it's where the law is today, at least in the state of New York, is it's a little bit of a hybrid. It's both. You have to both look at, do we trust his sincerity? Do we find his fear credible? But also, how would we have expected other people to behave? Now, the jury ends up siding with him on that. I think a reasonable jury could have come to another conclusion, I believe, just on account of the simple fact that objectively, most people don't walk through the streets of even a rough New York carrying an unlicensed firearm. That alone is itself indicative of unreasonableness, but it was a complicated legal case. And I sort of get into that in a whole chapter, sort of the back and forth and the jury who was doing, I think, the best they could, but still weighted down by their own biases and their own baggage. Let's be clear.
And ultimately, they
acquitted him.
I mean, they get him on the firearms thing, which is a rounding error compared to.
It's a rounding error. I mean, you're talking about potentially, decades in prison versus the 8 months he actually served. And the firearm one, it was just a slam dunk. Did he illegally possess a firearm? Well, he was walking down the street with it, admitted to shooting people with it. He might as well have just pled guilty to it. He didn't, but there was no dispute, and the jury dismissed that one in about 15 minutes of deliberations. They said, of course, he's guilty of that.
One of the things I'm really struck by, your book doesn't just talk about this super intriguing case, which you could talk about in a super intriguing way, but it doesn't just do that. It this question of vigilante or aggrieved victim himself, this kind of thing. It's the broader societal landscape that is really a character as well. In our last few minutes, can you just speak to that, the way this case and this incident, if you will, with everything that you've talked about being integrated into that incident, really can be applied to what we're living through today?
Absolutely. And I didn't realize, I was born in Brooklyn. I grew up in New Jersey, just outside the city, and grew up with this case. I was 8 when it happened, and it shaped my notion of, or even not even just this case, all of this string of really horrific, high-profile racial incidents in New York City through the understanding of race and crime in the law and bias and all of the above. Like you take these things in as a kid. Now, how we live with many of these things today, I think Minneapolis, and you cited that, is the clearest instance that everybody is aware of today. And unfortunately, Minneapolis happened after the book was submitted, so I couldn't have added it. I absolutely would have, because these questions of when do we deem even officers' use of deadly force to be reasonable? When do we defer to officers who say, I was so threatened or scared in the heat of this moment that I had to just open fire? Now, the law does have protections for officers who do that, but look, you watched the videos, Mark. I did too. And at a minimum, the Alex Preddy shooting, it is just hard to watch that video and see even gray, dark gray, medium gray areas there. It seems pretty clear, and particularly given the answers that were just complete falsehoods from the president and the administration about what had happened in those circumstances. But so that's the clearest example today of we live with the idea of assessing the reasonableness of violent or deadly force every single day. We still today live with the idea of who gets lifted up as a vigilante. And someone whose name comes up a few times in my book is Kyle Rittenhouse, or Daniel Penny, who some people may not know, had choked an individual to death as sort of a homeless person who was mentally ill on the New York City subway, claiming that he was a threat, or perceiving him to be a threat. Well, right after that choking, he ended up number one in Donald Trump's box at the Army-Navy football game in Philadelphia, and then two, getting a job offer from Andreessen Horowitz, the biggest venture capital firm in the country. He got lifted up and made into a celebrity on account of engaging in a violent act. Well, why is that? Well, we're living with all these questions today. And so I'm not saying that Bernard Goetz was necessarily the first one, but it's in a line of very salient issues today. And the very, very quick last one I will make is, you think the media is upsetting today or makes people sad. Well, again, look back at the 1980s, but think about all the images we take in at social media or wherever else that are whipping us up and making us more afraid and making us more angry. Well, that's the New York City media in 1984. It affected how people saw the world.
Wow, that's so good. That's so good. I was thinking, as you were talking about the Preddy execution, in my view, I was thinking about the fact that there are so many more witnesses to whatever fear might be legitimate or illegitimate as claimed around an incident. So when you're talking about these things, there are so many more citizen journalists, if you're lucky.
Yeah, real quick. The most enlightening interview of the people I spoke to was Al Sharpton, because I had expected Reverend Sharpton to be far more strident and Goetz and the boys. And no, he was quite measured, saying that, look, this isn't about Bernard Goetz. This isn't about the boys. Like, if they did something bad, they should go to jail too. But Sharpton raised a really important point about citizen journalism, that with cell phones in that train car, this is a totally different case. And all of these questions of, was Goetz mugged? Was he threatened? Was it reasonable? Was it not? Would have been vastly different in 2026 because someone would have caught it on video. And Minneapolis, George Floyd, Alex Preddy, Renee Good would have been different circumstances were it not for the video. And that's a blessing and a curse of the world we live in today.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so right on. We'll have a link to the book, 5 Bullets, the story of Bernie Goetz, New York's explosive 80s, and the subway vigilante trial that divided the nation. Link to it under this video. Love your stuff, Eliot. Keep on doing it. You're everywhere, CNN and NPR. I don't know where you are. You're an industry unto yourself, and you're a writer, too. It's great stuff. Eliot Williams.
Kind. Yeah.
Thanks, my friend.
Mark.
Please come visit again. All right. Eliot Williams, everybody.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, that really is a treat. And again, links to that book under this video and under the breakout video. Yeah. Interesting guy, interesting subject. And thank you for your questions and comments along the way. I know. I was struck by one thing as I watched that. I am really good, is what I thought. Yeah, really. I mean, I just,
do you know who I am?
Exactly.
I'm kind of a big deal.
I just, I watch this stuff and I go, gosh, man, you really are good at this. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Girl, you just woo.
Did Trump just occupy your body for a minute? Is
This
that
is
what
a
happened?
man with anger. This is a man that has resentment towards you.
What is happening?
All right.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
Jules says, with a $10 super chat, what role did the economy play during this time? Yeah, well, I think we touched on that.
Yeah.
The economy and the general state of things in New York was not good. And so all of that happened in that context, you know. Hey, I wanted to mention Donald Trump may be on to something, Louise says. If my Dodgers don't win the series yearly, there must, in capital letters, be cheating. And they should be handed a trophy anyway, LOL. Hashtag ridiculous. Yeah, thanks, Louise, for that. And a big shout out to you for always being there with the super chat. Speaking of the cheating thing, that was a standout moment in the State of the Union message. Again, I think the State of the Union message, A, waste of time, B, waste of a lot of energy, C, generally inconsequential. But within the State of the Union, sometimes there are morsels that will inform future political strategies or even future policy strategies. Usually it's policy stuff that's never going to get followed through on. But in this case, I thought the cheating thing was really instructive because that will be the plan come the midterms should the GOP lose. Here is what Trump said last night on the cheating.
Most importantly, I'm asking you to approve the Save America Act. To stop illegal aliens and others who are unpermitted persons from voting in our sacred American elections.
Well, as you well know, there is no evidence that illegal immigrants vote in the election. If you were in a country illegally, would you go to a polling place where there are a bunch of official people associated with that country checking identifications and would you, just to vote? Come on. It doesn't even pass the smell test. Yet, under this smokescreen, they are going to try, again, it won't pass it, but they're going to try to get this SAVE Act through. Pass the House, won't pass the Senate probably. But the other thing I would say is that it gets the narrative out there. It continues the ridiculousness of this crap. And it tags illegal immigrants with this motivation, which is completely fictitious, that they want to vote in the election. The Democrats, they want to somehow enlist illegals, as they're put, to vote in the election and win the election. So that was one thing. And yeah, it's utter crap. But again, it was one of the things that I think indicates a plan in the future. And again, as I was mentioning to you, the winning, you know, we're winning like never before. I think that's a potential campaign ad, because I don't think Americans feel like they're winning like ever before. I think the billionaires are winning. The crypto techno billionaires are winning. The people that Trump interacts with, they're all winning. I mean, corruption has been completely allowed to run roughshod over Washington. So it isn't even considered moving the meter anymore to get some payoff from the Saudis, from the UAE people, from any country that is wanting some kind of favorable treatment from the U.S. It's not even viewed as something that should be looked at askance.
But Mark, we're winning so much, we don't even know what to do with all the winning.
Here is Trump on the winning.
A short time ago, we were a dead country. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world, the hottest.
I don't even know what that means. We're the hottest country. Yeah. Before we were a 6, now we're a 10. Yeah. All right. Yeah. It's again, it's the absurdity, and yet it's the messaging. So there is all of that. I do want to mention there is a very strong
The Mark Thompson Show.
A very strong showing that you have provided our partners and our newest advertiser. I'm talking about Zellman. I always have my Zellmans with me in my pocket. The Zellman's Minty Mouth. It's a, you see it there. Zellman's Minty Mouth is on the outside. This is the peppermint. They also have a spearmint. It's a coating of either peppermint or spearmint. They have the different options. But they're really tiny capsules, and the key is not that. I mean, it's nice that it has this powerful mint on the outside. But what's inside these small capsules? Parsley seed oil. And that parsley seed oil interacts with those things in your stomach to neutralize the odors that can cause bad breath. This stuff really does work. We take it in my house even before we go to bed. It neutralizes morning breath. In your mouth, you have the powerful blast of the peppermint or spearmint, and in your gut, you have the capsules and the release of the oils which interact with your stomach. Gluten-free, keto-friendly, Zellmans.com, Z-E-L-M-I-N-S, Zellmans.com. You do get a discount with our discount code, Mark T, 15% off Zellmans.com. Get it, try it for yourself. I think you're really going to be blown away. Zellmans.com, Mark T at checkout for 15% off.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I am winning so much that I am having oatmeal for dinner. That's why I can never contribute to the Mark Thompson Show. Well, how dare you, Laura? How dare you? Another free rider here. My God. MAGA cultists love it. I think that's true. John's right. I think MAGA cultists do love it, you know. Yeah, it's a, again, it's something that will be forgotten, but nonetheless, I think the State of the Union message is something that can be revealing, and it's, I think, revealing in the ways that we've talked about today. I did want to mention that
The Mark Thompson Show.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth sat down with the Anthropic people. You know, Anthropic is the AI model, and Pete Hegseth, this will come as no surprise to you, perhaps, wants more AI and AI access for the Pentagon and for the military. So he's saying to Anthropic, and this just happened yesterday, that either you give the Pentagon and the military more access to Anthropic's AI model, or
Claude
is the model, exactly. And apparently Claude's really good, okay? But I mean, again, not perfect, because AI isn't perfect. I mean, if you used AI at all, Claude or ChatGPT or whatever it might be, you know it's wrong a bunch. It'll screw stuff up, and you have to correct it. I've mentioned this to you before. It happens, and then it'll say, good catch. Like,
yeah.
You know, but the reason that's particularly relevant here is you get the Pentagon that wants to use AI for missions that will involve weaponry. In other words, the Defense Department, now Department of War, they want the power to have the AI model decide on its own, without human involvement, what will happen with any number of attacks, weaponry, analysis associated with weaponry, and actually launching that weaponry. I mean, it's kind of scary. So you won't have human involvement in major decisions associated with war. Hegseth told the people who are all part of Anthropic, I mean, he met with the CEO, but there are other members of the crew there from Anthropic as well, that either you play ball or you'll be declared a supply chain risk, or we might even invoke the Defense Production Act to force the company to tailor its model to the military needs. This seems to be something that's getting increasingly nasty. Anthropic has said it's willing to adapt its usage policies for the Pentagon, but not to allow the model to be used for the mass surveillance of Americans, or, this is the part that I was talking to you about, the development of weapons that fire without human involvement.
It seems like a reasonable thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, do you really want,
right?
You want weapons that fire without any kind of human involvement?
Thank you.
And
No.
you certainly have, you know, you talk about trying to build in sort of plausible deniability. Well, there you go. Oh, gosh, we don't know how Claude fired that weapon. We wouldn't have taken those sailors out. etc. So
The Guardian wrote a piece on this, and they said that negotiations between Hegseth and Anthropic is really important because it's this moment, this key moment that shows whether the industry, the AI industry, will be pushing back against the demands made by the government for the military use of these kinds of products.
well, here you have some pushback, but you have a real threat by the U.S. government. You get the clear picture that the U.S. government is going to, in a way, extort whatever it wants from these companies. They face a crippling of their businesses if they don't play ball with the government. So, again, during the conversation, the CEO expressed appreciation for the department's work, thanked the Secretary for his service. They tried to be, conciliatory, but apparently Hegseth is really hot about this and was not happy. And again, you've got Palantir and you've got Claude, again, Anthropic. You have a bunch of Palantir's involved with surveillance and data surveillance. Claude's involved with AI. And so, the marriage of these things leads to some pretty dark places when it comes to American life.
But well done for Anthropic for standing up, because xAI, which I think is Elon Musk's, and OpenAI, both of those have agreed to the government's terms on the uses of the AI for that. So, I mean, for all lawful uses. So Anthropic seems to be the only one with safeguard measures in place.
I mean, this is also something that is, it's so Hegseth to be so blatantly threatening. This is his thing, right? He's just a tough guy. They're all a bunch of tough guys. And so he's threatened with this Defense Production Act. You remember they used the Defense Production Act during COVID when they forced companies to increase production of vaccines and of that protective equipment and ventilators, for example. So this stuff has been used before. This, again, Defense Production Act is called. So it compels, it gives the government the authority to compel a company to play ball and prioritize certain things. And so it's possible. I mean, again, he's really threatened this. It's possible that he can just force this. We'll see. That's your, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. And again, he thinks nothing of threatening companies and extracting what he wants from them. So
it's interesting when you look at companies like this and the whole AI industry and how unregulated it is, and other tech companies and emerging industries like crypto. Did you see the story about Iran and Binance?
Oh my God, yes. This is crazy. Over the last year, Iran is all over Binance like a bad smell. I mean, and this is Binance, Kim will remind you, is the company that got a big pass. The head of Binance got a huge pardon from Donald Trump.
And you get a pardon, and you get a pardon for $1 million or more.
Yeah, he was handing out pardons faster than he was handing out those medals last night during the State of the Union address. But yeah, the Iranians are all over Binance. So this is, again, this story I just saw today in the New York Times. But it's bizarre because it does appear that some of your enemies are running through some of these programs that you're giving a true pass to.
New York Times says Iran transferred $1.7 billion to terrorist groups, or those that are giving money to terrorist groups, through this cryptocurrency service, Binance. That happened last year. We've known about that, and now Senate Democrats are opening an inquiry into this. But again, this whole thing, unregulated, you could pass money to whomever, right? There's no one's looking.
That's the beauty of that world of crypto. And again, the Binance stuff and some of what Kim's talking about is being handled by investigatively by Richard Blumenthal, the senator from Connecticut. So I mean, you're looking at almost $2 billion in crypto from Binance accounts to entities in Iran. It's a big deal. And again, I'll remind you again that the Binance guy got that pass, and he pled guilty to money laundering, allowing customers in countries under sanctions, including Iran, to transact on his platform. And this is, again, you can convert traditional currencies into digital currency. Paid $4.3 billion in penalties and was forced to leave the U.S. market. And again, CZ, as he's called, that Changpan Zhao, he served 4 months, and then boom, Trump knocks him down a pass, a pardon. So this is a big story as well. Yeah. I had something else on Hegseth before I left it, and you distracted me, Kim. And
My apologies.
I don't know why.
I pulled a Rothman on you. No,
you did,
no.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to. I had another Hegseth. I know what it was. It was the he's going after Mark Kelly again.
Yes.
I mean, it's crazy. Like, dude, let it go. This is a net loser for you. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is appealing an order that was barring punishment for Senator Mark Kelly after a video in which Kelly and other Democrats pushed for service members to reject unlawful orders. In a filing yesterday, the Defense Department said it was appealing this earlier ruling, halting the Pentagon's efforts to censure Kelly and lower his retirement rank. Kelly shot back at yesterday's move from the Pentagon on the social platform X, saying these guys don't know when to quit, and that is so true. A federal judge told Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, these are the words of Mark Kelly, that they violated my constitutional rights and chilled the free speech of millions of retired veterans. There's only one reason to appeal that ruling, and that's to keep trampling on the free speech rights of retired veterans and silence dissent. I went to war, he said, to defend Americans' constitutional rights, and I won't back down from this fight, no matter how far they want to take it. It's insane. But these guys are all about ego and flex, and they just cannot understand when to let things go. Anyway, that's the book on Hegseth as we sit here, with yesterday being a day that he's going to uncork more trouble for Mark Kelly. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
We are finishing up, and I do have some things that will happen tomorrow that are pretty exciting. So I will move some of our agenda today to tomorrow. But before I leave you, I do want to share with you access to the greatest coffee on earth. When you greet the day tomorrow, I want you to greet it the way I do. I have this, the Peacefully Resist mug, which is available at getmarkmerch.com, and our tasteful logo emblazoned on the backside. This is the best coffee I've ever tasted, and I just wanted to give them a mention. I love them as partners. They've been here since the very beginning. All organic and ethically sourced from women-owned farms. Coachella Valley Coffee. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, and there you'll find, again, this boutique roastery, curated beans, people who care about the community and care about communities worldwide. There they are in El Salvador this past year, working to get you the very best organic coffee and tea. You will find their teas, their spices, their coffee, all at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Use our discount code MARKT for 10% off. Again, this isn't some discount roastery. This is a high-end boutique roastery, and you get 10% off with Mark T. You'll be glad you found them. They are wonderful. The coffee is delicious.
Put that coffee down.
So
Don't ever put it down.
you'll be very, very happy. All right, I'm going to adjourn this scene here soon.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I wanted to see, can you see my posts, says Ruben.
I think so.
Can we see him? We see that one. We see the one asking if we can see you. Ruben posts a question mark and another question mark. What could that possibly mean?
I don't know.
Ruben?
Maybe he's asking about the new Mark Thompson Show Facebook page.
Oh, that could be. Big shout out to you, Ruben, if you are. Ruben with a $2 super sticker.
Big shout out.
And then another $2 super chat with the question mark about the Mark Thompson Show Facebook page. I've just become aware of this platform. It's called Facebook. I'm not really super up on it, but apparently a lot of the young kids are on Facebook, and we are on it too now. You can find it at The Mark Thompson Show on Facebook. Sign up, and we are putting videos up there. Soon there'll be a lot of stuff up there, like real interactions, but get in early. Pretty cool. Join, you'll see videos, you'll see content, and there's a link in the show description. And is that it?
No, that's the wrong one.
That's not it. Yeah, I was going to say that's it. There's a problem. There are frauds up there, Tony.
Yeah,
that's one of them. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, okay, Tony. That's good.
Thanks, Tony.
I hope that's not what we're linking to.
No.
But make sure you're on the official. What you'll see is videos from the show. You'll know it. Mm-hmm. Videos from our show. So, like just from the last couple of days, you'll recognize. Yeah, there you go. You've got it right now. With Sarah Kendzior, etc. That's the Mark Thompson Show Facebook page. Join it and be part of the Facebook party again, and embrace this new technology and platform, Facebook. Confused here. If our global credit rating is lowered, everything is more expensive. Measles are back. Tariffs wrecking the economy. Where's all the winning, says Luis. Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of agree with you. Big shout out to you, Luis. I mean, again, I mentioned this before, just on that. Donald Trump doesn't mind the dollar getting weak because he doesn't see things. He doesn't really understand anything. I mean, he understands marketing. Don't get me wrong. He understands marketing and messaging. So I don't mean to make him sound like he's just a total buffoon. But when it comes to economics, I don't think he understands anything. And so he doesn't understand much when it comes to the repercussions from a weak dollar that will extend beyond this, which he cares about, which is trade. So if you have a weak dollar, then you make it easier for other countries to buy your stuff, if you want to think of it that way. So it's on some level good for production, and that's about the best facing of it. The rest of the stuff, measles being back and tariffs wrecking the economy. Yeah, I can't speak to how he jujitsus that somehow into a good thing, but he does. We've done a lot. We've said a lot. Tomorrow, the brilliant former federal prosecutor, David Katz. I'm just looking at something else tomorrow, too. I think I have an interview that I did that will run tomorrow. It's pretty good. I have a couple. I don't know which one. We'll decide on which one. We're stacking them up. We've got some pretty special guests. All right, guys. I could continue, but I feel like I've gone on long enough. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everybody. And until tomorrow, the Great Shadow.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. After party. After party is what Kim's doing now. Maybe you want to go over there and enjoy that. Until tomorrow. Bye-bye.